I am so stupid. Hello, gorgeous people. What is going on? And welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're jumping back into the analog horror series, Vita Carnis Season 2. And today's going to be a shorter video because we're going over a secret video that I missed. And I was not going to wait until Season 3 came out just to go over this secret video. I want to go over it now and see what we could find out that can maybe help us predict what is going to happen in Season 3. Now, before we get started, please be sure to go and support the original creator of Vita Carnis, Darian Quilloy, whose link to the channel will be at the top of the description down below. And one more thing I want to say is that Darian is actually also starting a fund to help make Season 3 happen and be the absolute best that it can be. It's over on Darian's Ko-Fi, which I will be leaving linked in the description down below. If you guys really like this series, and if you can, please be sure to go and support the Ko-Fi. Sending money through the Ko-Fi can help provide funding for Season 3, but also can get you some behind the scenes access on how some of Season 2 was made and some concepts for Season 2. I've actually been a member of the Ko-Fi for quite a while now, and seeing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff is super awesome. So like I said, if you're a big fan of the series and you want to help fund Season 3, be sure to go hit that link to the Ko-Fi in the description down below. But alright, now I'm going to talk to you about this secret video that I missed. I am such an idiot because I even mentioned in the last video how I expected a 2 out of 3 video. And to explain that, at the end of Season 1, there was a secret video link in the Season 1 finale. And when you went to that link, you got a video labeled 1 out of 3. And the video pretty much showed a lot of the storybook with an added page at the end that we had never seen before, but it was cut up. And I said in that video that I'm expecting one of those at the end of each season. I mean, it makes sense. We got the first one at the end of Season 1, and that was 1 out of 3. So at the end of Season 2, you'd get 2 out of 3, and then at the end of Season 3, you'd get 3 out of 3. But then when we watched Necrotic Wounds, the season finale, I didn't notice a link in the description, so I was like, oh, maybe there's no video. Meanwhile, I'm stupid. I should have went through the video more in depth to try to find this link. I should have known better. That's how the first link was hidden, was in the video. But anyways, we found it today. So if you go to Necrotic Wound and you go to 1401, this happens right after the flying creature crashes into the monolith, making that new gigantic creature, and that gigantic creature flies away. This is when that happens. The link shows up at the bottom here upside down, and it's literally only for a few frames, as you could see here. But if you type that link into your search bar, you get this video here, which is labeled 2 out of 3, which is pretty much the sequel to 1 out of 3. So let's watch it together. Secret Video 6, Storybook Part 2. Alright, so the storybook again. All right, obviously that was very quick, so we're gonna go through it. I'm gonna read the storybook again just because I do think people actually need a refresher on the storybook and how important it could be to the story, and then we'll go to that last added page. And we'll go over this audio here because it does sound like we got some reversed audio. Page 1. Once upon a time, there was a distant kingdom. The kingdom was ruled by a royal family. A king, a queen, and a prince. The royal family were magical scholars who wanted to obtain knowledge and expand their kingdom and heighten their mystical abilities. They traveled land and sea to discover new places and learn what the new lands hold. Okay, this page is a little less clear to read, but still the message is pretty obvious in what it's saying. On the travels of one of their expeditions, a great storm struck. It was so powerful, it swayed the boat, and the royal family rowed and the prince out and into the sea. So basically, while they were on a trip, the prince fell out of the boat into the sea. After being stranded at sea, the young prince was eventually cast to an island. Injured, the prince stumbled his way into a nearby cave. He then used what magic he could to put himself into a healing sleep. But the prince's sleep was long. He slept for what seemed like forever. As he slept, the world around him changed and grew. It was unrecognizable from when the prince first arrived, but the sleep still needed time to heal the prince, much more time. But it kept the prince safe while he rested. guarding him from the elements as the land changed. Outside the cave during a time of hardship lived the island critters. The critters were struggling during this hard time. There was barely any food to go around. They would go and gather whatever they could, but came back with less and less each day. Although one day, the critters found the cave while searching for food. They found the prince entranced in his healing sleep. The critters were awestruck and enchanted by the prince's magic. The critters argued amongst themselves. Who is this creature? Why are they here? Are they dangerous? A thought was brought up. What if this creature could use its magic to help them? It may grow food or heal sickness. They continued to argue about the prince and his magic. In the end, the majority of the critters agreed that the prince was dangerous and should not be meddled with. Although the other critters ignored the rest of their fellow kind. Instead, they secretly visited the slumbering visitor. They snuck what little food they had and carefully fed it to the prince, greatly hastening his recovery. One day the prince awoke suddenly. Thanks to the critters' assistance, the healing process had finished very quickly. The prince had fully recovered and was now fully awake and aware of their surroundings. Surprised by the sudden awakening, the critters ducked and hid from the prince. One of the critters built up the courage to meet the now awake stranger. They crawled to the prince's side and extended their hand in friendship. The prince reached back, and together they had formed the bond that will change their fate. The critters led the prince out of the cave, up to the top of the hill. The prince had laid buried under, and showed them the forest. This is our home, full of wonder and beauty. Although the forest struggles to provide for all of us critters, and we are facing disaster. Can you help us? That page is so hard to read right there, man. Oh my god. Hold on. The prince stood back, waved his arms, and before him grew a bright light. Mystical shapes and colors, lights and figures. The critters were struck with awe. Such sublime brilliance. The prince concluded his display. He vowed, with the power he holds, and with the help of his kingdom, he shall heal their home. The prince gathered what he could, and then set sail onward. Once the prince returns home, they will come back to the island and return to the critters. And now we get to the secret next page, which as you can see here, we're still missing a third of it, but we can pretty much understand, I believe, what it says. One day while the king and queen sat and blank, at long last, the prince made it home. The prince blank, a new land, and which was plentiful with resources and blank. And now the kingdom can spread forward. Okay, so I know a lot of people forget about the storybook, and that's why I want to go over it, but it's definitely going to be super important to understanding the Carnis's origin, why it's here, what it's going to do. Just going through the storybook here, the prince is clearly the Carnis, right? I mean, we could tell when he's on his little boat going back home that it has the Carnis logo. Now, I think this entire story is pretty much like the Critters Island is Earth. And the Carnis family, the prince and the king and the queen, are from another planet, and their kingdom is the other planet. And as you can see here, it says the royal family were magical scholars who want to obtain knowledge and expand their kingdom and heighten their mystical abilities. So I believe that they're just on another planet. They want to expand beyond that planet throughout the universe and just obtain more power and learn more about what's out there. And it seems that maybe in their travels across the universe, the prince somehow got split up from the king and the queen, and he landed on Earth. And Earth is where the critters live. Now, it's unsure if the critters are like humans or if they're animals of Earth, because we're not sure exactly when this takes place. And if they are humans, are they like humans from like hundreds and thousands of years ago? Or did this happen somewhat recently? Because we see the prince displays a bit of his magical power, right? So is that him maybe, you know, dropping the seeds of the Carnis onto Earth? And then later on, that's when the Carnis started to grow and, you know, obviously develop species like the Trimmings and the Mimics? Or is this just a display of power, not actually doing anything? And we see that the prince says, listen, I'm going home, but I'll come back for you guys. And when the prince came back, that's when the Carnis started to develop on Earth. And this whole plan has just been to now conquer Earth and expand the kingdom, the Carnis kingdom, onto Earth. That's my theory with all this. I do think that, you know, the prince is the Carnis. The prince found Earth and they were like, damn, yo, mom and dad, this planet, it looks prime real estate. Like, we could definitely expand here. And then they came back and they dropped the seeds of the Carnis to start the process of just taking over the planet. And obviously, with how season 2 ends, who's stopping that giant creature? Let me know. That could be like the summoned form of the prince, Or I was wondering too, if there's the gateway that they were talking about, right, in the last video. What if the gateway is a way to bring the royal family through to Earth because they're across the galaxy somewhere or across the universe? And maybe that new giant creature isn't actually the prince or anything, it's just another creature that's in the process of helping take over Earth and setting up the gateways and things for the royal family to actually come through. Now, there is one more thing that we have to go over, and that's the reversed audio, which, as you can see here, I took the audio from the video, I put it into reverse, and let me show you what it says. Okay, so if you listen very closely, right, you can hear what sounds like bubbling, which that sound reminds me of the singularities whenever we saw from their perspective or whenever they spoke. It just sounds a lot like the singularities. This is a bit hard to interpret what it actually means. You could almost take this as maybe from the prince's perspective, right? I was surrounded by noise, so much noise. I saw that the insignificant things that shape their world reduce these noises. Rippling inadvertently across the vast ocean, they hold the key to our ultimate goal. Now, if our theory is true that the royal family is the Carnis and their goal is to spread their influence and spread their power across other places, I think that Earth would be the key to their goal. Earth would be a prime planet to take over that already has several existing species, you know, tons and tons, a lot of lands, and a population to take over. And obviously we have technology that does fascinate them. If you remember when the Singularities discovered the TV, they were very curious about it. They were very interested in it. And I think that could be what it means by, I was surrounded by noise, so much noise.
What? These boxes, devices, for talk. Are you talking about the radios? Yes. Catches noise. Brilliance.
I saw that the insignificant things that shape their world reduce these noises. It's the fact that it's saying reduce these noises that doesn't make sense to me, because what would the insignificant things be? Like humans? Do humans reduce the noise of it? Of like TVs and static and, you know, electromagnetic waves and all this? I don't think so, but it's definitely interesting to think about, and I think of course we'll get to know more as we get into season 3. But my theory right now is that that giant creature is either the prince or it's not the prince, and it's just the final step of the Carnis's planet takeover before they used the warp gate and, you know, all those machines that they were using to bring the royal family through to Earth. Or that giant thing is definitely the prince, and that's like just its form, you know, being formed by all the Carnis, and it's going to use that gateway to just bring his parents through, the king and the queen. One last thing I want to add too, I saw some people in the comments of this secret video say like, well, who's the prince bowing to if the king and queen are right here? Because it looks like he's either bowing to them or bowing to something that's over here. And to be honest, I have no idea. Maybe he's bowing to whatever is the central source of their power, or he is bowing to them and there's just something behind them. It's a bit unclear, but this page does seem like at long last the prince made it home. Obviously, he tells them about a new land, plentiful with resources, and now their kingdom can spread forward. They're gonna take over. But yeah, that's really it. I just had to go over that. I had to add those details. I want to make sure that I try to go over everything I possibly can with the series, especially since we're probably about to get a decent sized break from it, since season 3 is going to take some time to develop and Darian is looking to raise funding for that, which again, if you love this series as much as I do, please, please, please go over to Darian's Ko-Fi, which will be linked in the description down below, to help raise money and support for season 3. And of course, be sure to go over to Darian's channel, which will be linked at the top of the description down below. Please be sure to go and support your analog horror content creators. If you guys have any theories or thoughts on anything that we went over in this video, the storybook, the Carnis, things that are totally separate, I would absolutely love to hear them. A ton of you guys have been DMing me your thoughts and theories, and they're super interesting to read. read. So please keep that coming in the comments down below. And of course, if you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to drop a like on it. I do stuff like this all the time on my channel for multiple different series. And last but not least, if you guys are interested in content that is non-horror from me, I've been playing a bunch of story games over on my second channel, Project Immortal, and we just hit 30,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for that. The link to the second channel is in the description down below. But alright guys, that's it for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.